Now there comes a time in a player's career where they go on a generational run of form. A period in time in their career where they are just unstoppable. They can take on an entire team, an entire army, an entire system by themselves. It doesn't matter. During these periods in their career, they're at the peak of their powers, and in today's video, I am going to be highlighting my favorite generational runs in football from the 2000s, and specifically strikers in the 2000s. So this is a limited edition generational runs in football segment. Of course, as you guys may or may not know already, this is a series that we do on the channel that has many other videos. So after this one, you can go ahead and watch the others. But of course, let's just get in to the first generational run in football and run of form that we have to talk about. And this run of form comes from a striker that donned the name El Nino, arriving at Liverpool back in 2007. And during this time, he would take the Premier League by storm. In his debut season, Fernando Torres was simply electric. This guy had it all. He had pace, power, clever movement, lethal finishing, and a headband and blonde hair. And in his first season, he would go on to score 33 goals in 46 games. This guy would bag these goals in the 2007/8 season, with 24 of them being in the Premier League alone. And during this time, this was the most goals that we had ever seen scored by a foreign player in their debut season in the Premier League, eclipsing a record that was held by the brilliant Ruud van Nistelrooy. And it's like Liverpool fans during this time hadn't seen a striker just come into their team and bag goals like this since the likes of Michael Owen or Robbie Fowler in the 95/96 season. Torres came in and he just did it with style. This brother at the time, I know you don't want me to say it, but he had aura. And some of his goals were brilliant, like a gliding header against Reading or a thunderbolt volley against Middlesbrough. I even think that on his Anfield debut, he scored a goal against Chelsea, and this was a goal that saw him skin a defender and put it into the back of the net. He would also go on to score back-to-back hat-tricks at Anfield in 2008, a feat that was last achieved by a Liverpool player back in 1945, with him scoring 3 past Middlesbrough and then 3 past West Ham. Like, he was unstoppable during this time. You guys don't understand. Watching him growing up, it was just like, this guy is something different, some sort of alien in the system. Breaking defenses with delicate one-touch finishes, but he could also shoot a powerful header into the back of the net. He would claim the Player of the Month back in February of 2008. And by spring of 2008, he was tormenting teams in the Champions League too. And despite that team being Arsenal, yeah, he was finishing them off. He would score a pivotal goal against Arsenal in the Champions League quarter-final where Liverpool won 4-2, helping Liverpool get to a semi-final, and he also scored against Inter Milan in the round of 16 before this goal against Arsenal. He was the man for the big occasion during his rise. And after his first season, his 24 goals would only be second best to Cristiano Ronaldo. Of course, he is a complete different alien outlier, but Fernando Torres was competing up there with the best of the best, with him being shortlisted for the PFA Player of the Year and the PFA Team of the Year, whilst also placing third for the FIFA Player of the Year back in 2008. And I swear, during this 2007/8 season, this 23-year-old just came into Liverpool and stunned everyone. He was genuinely a babyface assassin, man. Nobody knew that this guy had the lethal ability to break down teams. And of course, in later years at the club, you would see him destroy the likes of Ferdinand and Vidic in a game against Manchester United. But for his first season at Liverpool to be claimed as a generational run, you have to go back and watch these goals. And of course, before Torres coming onto the scene and breaking the record for the most goals scored by a foreign player in a debut season, there was another player that held this record, and his name was Ruud van Nistelrooy, a bagsman of the early 2000s. And we have to talk about specifically his 2002/3 season with Manchester United, which honestly was a goal binge. When I tell you that Ruud van Nistelrooy, if you go and watch the tapes back, was a goal scoring machine, you won't believe me, so you gotta watch the clips. And when I did do the research and watch this season back, I was mind blown. Mouth was open. What's going on? Because at times this guy was relentless. He honestly had an archetype similar to the likes of Fernando Torres with the blistering pace, but also he had this ability to score inside the box. He was a box predator in the box, the biggest predator of the box I've ever seen. And during that 2002/3 season with Manchester United, he would score 44 goals in like 52 games. Of course, Manchester United were competing in every competition, but their man to go to for the goals was Van Nistelrooy. And during his time, he would hold the record for the most goals in a Premier League season. During this season, Van Nistelrooy would score 25 goals in the Premier League, earning him a Golden Boot, whilst also leading the Champions League in goals scored too. And he did this, by the way, for multiple seasons. If you go back to the record books, go from like 2002 all the way to like 2007, Van Nistelrooy in the Champions League goal scoring ranks is always up there. He was just inevitable during this time and dragged Manchester United during the season back to a Premier League title. And he could genuinely score every single type of goal, whether it was a post just tap in, a powerful header, or a solo run finish. And I think it was like a game against Fulham where he went on this marauding run, taking on multiple defenders and scoring. It's something that I wouldn't see, or that you would never see from a striker of this build in today's game. And during this 2002/03 season, things would get even better for Van Nistelrooy, scoring hat-tricks against the likes of Newcastle, Fulham and even Charlton. He was unrivaled, and one thing that I really enjoyed about watching Ruud van Nistelrooy back was his one touch or 1 to 2 touch finishing inside of the box. Most of his goals were on instinct. That's a trait that we don't really see from a lot of modern strikers in football, where they like to overthink, take too many touches, then the opportunity is gone. But strikers like Ruud van Nistelrooy showcased during his prime that he didn't really need many chances or touches on a ball to get it into the back of the net. It was more about his positioning, timing and awareness. And during this campaign, under the pressure of a title race, Ruud van Nistelrooy rose to the occasion, helping Manchester United go 18 games unbeaten to overtake Arsenal in the Premier League. And with Ruud van Nistelrooy scoring in each of the last 8 games in that campaign, you can't claim that he wasn't involved. This was 8 back-to-back games that he said, you know what, I need to get this title. Goal after goal, week after week, he was just inevitable and a big bogey in that Arsenal side. You know, time and time again, when Manchester United and Arsenal clashed, against each other, Van Nistelrooy was a problem for the Arsenal defenders. And yes, he would edge out Thierry Henry to claim the Golden Boot. Imagine this was the type of Golden Boot races that we were seeing during these times. Thierry Henry going head to head with Ruud van Nistelrooy. Ruud van Nistelrooy, shoulder barging him off the top place to get 25 goals, with Henry getting 24. And of course, I think Henry did bag like 20 assists in this season, so you could claim that he had a generational run. But I've spoken about Thierry Henry in other episodes of this series. And that point aside, Van Nistelrooy swept the goal scoring charts, being top goal scorer in 3 different competitions: the Premier League, Champions League and also the FA Cup. This 2002/03 rampage that he went on cemented him as one of the best strikers in not only the Premier League but football as a whole. And while Ruud van Nistelrooy was dominating England with machine-like efficiency, over in Italy a young Brazilian was unleashing a wrath of his own. So we have to go forward in time and talk about the brilliance of Adriano during the 2004/05 season. Now, of course, many of you might know Adriano for his 99 shot power stat on PES 2006. But don't lie, you weren't really there. Half of you that claim to know Adriano from this game did not play this game, bro. You did not play PES 2006. But you know who did and who has knowledge about this? Me. Yes, me. Maybe because my brother didn't buy FIFA during this time, but we were invested in the PES series and Adriano was the real deal. But we need to talk about the season before he earned his place in this game with that 99 shot power. Now, at his peak, Adriano was unstoppable. And during a season back in 2004/05, Inter Milan fans would nickname him the Emperor, going to show the power that was bestowed upon him. He honestly was like a mythical creature during this time. Like, you did not believe that he was real. Especially when you go back into the archive of football and talk about strikers from this era, a lot of people fail to mention Adriano. And that's because his rise was swift and then he just disappeared. At 6'2", he had brute strength, but also a left foot that honestly had the power of a tractor. Defenders simply would just bounce off him when he was in and around the box, and it was funny to watch. And he could have hardly any momentum going into a shot and it would just rocket into the back of the net. And he was taking over the Serie A during a time where people were applauding defenders in Italy. They were seen to be some of the strongest defenders in the world, yet Adriano had come into that league and just started manhandling them. And of course, he was still in the league before making a move to Inter Milan, but at Inter Milan, it just went to a different level. In the 2004/5 season, he would score 28 goals in 42 games in all competitions. Leading the line with a fearsome presence, he was equally as good in Europe too, scoring 10 times in Inter Milan's campaign that year. And it's not like he was some hidden gem during this time, he was well known, placing 6th in the 2004 Ballon d'Or voting and then 7th in the 2005 voting. He was the type of striker that could just pick up the ball, drive a little bit and then blast a 30-yard strike into the back of the net. It was genuinely like he had aim assist on, or just was toggling with the sliders on FIFA, with one of his famous goals I think coming against Udinese. And one of his most memorable moments during this season is when he scored a hat-trick against Porto in the Champions League, single-handedly demolishing the reigning European champions. Yes, remember, Porto won the Champions League just the previous season. Adriano comes in, chats to all of these guys and says, yeah, you ain't on my level. He also would help Inter win Coppa Italia and go on a deep, unbeaten run in the Serie A. And during this time, it was like Inter fans thought he was the second coming of Ronaldo the Phenomenal. And I think what made this 04/5 campaign so brilliant for Adriano is that he was carrying this Inter team on his back. His 16 league goals and 10 Champions League goals would lead Inter's line, with him also dominating internationally, scoring 7 goals in the Copa America in 2004, a feat that would win him the competition's Golden Boot, whilst also going on to win the MVP of the Confederations Cup in 2005. And by mid-2005, we were genuinely thinking that this was one of the best strikers in the world. But of course, not all stories end in the perfect way. And sadly, off-pitch situations would hinder his potential, with Adriano losing his father and struggling with the pressures of being the main man for an established European club. Adriano's potential was slowly burned into flames, but his memories was etched into football fans during this time, creating a legacy that would never be forgotten by Inter Milan, and becoming somewhat of a what if in football. And while one striker was going through an early run in his career where he was breaking down doors in this league, there was another striker, a striker that was a bit more experienced, that was bullying defenders in this same league the next season. So we have to talk about Luca Toni from the 2005/6 season. During this season, Luca Toni turned the Serie A into his personal playground. And at 6'4" with this broad frame, he would just go on to tower against defenders, becoming one of football's best target men during this season. Playing for Fiorentina, the 28-year-old would score 31 goals in 38 games, which was the first time a striker has scored more than 30 goals in the league since 1958. He was putting up numbers with the likes of Gunnar Nordahl in the 1950s. And during this time, he would become the first and only Italian to ever win the Golden Boot since the creation of the Golden Boot. And Toni's style was about using his physique against the opponent, with him combining this with his poacher's-like instinct in and around the box, because he was not the type of striker that could go on solo runs, you know, take on many players. No, he was working with what he had, bullying defenders in back-to-goal experiences, turning and shooting, and also headed opportunities. Many headed opportunities. But again, when you look back at the discography, there was volleys, there was tap-ins. Luca Toni during this season was just on a fire streak. And for some reason, there even were times where he would slalom through a couple defenders before scoring. It was weird to randomly see a burst of pace from Luca Toni. And I think what made this campaign for Luca Toni so good is that his team just embraced his style of play. Fiorentina had their wingers whipping in crosses time and time again for Luca Toni to get his head onto, with him scoring multiple hat-tricks as Fiorentina was surging up the table. This was a historic run by Luca Toni to get Fiorentina into a Champions League spot, helping them finish 4th. And by the end of the campaign, he had scored nearly half of Fiorentina's goals. And despite this run of form kind of being snatched away from Luca Toni as he brought them to a Champions League spot that would soon be revoked due to a scandal, real ones know that Luca Toni was the guy this season, because he had gone from a journeyman to a superstar overnight. During this 2005/6 campaign, Luca Toni would win the European Golden Boot. Yes, this late blooming Italian striker would outscore the likes of Samuel Eto'o, Thierry Henry, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and he also would earn himself a starting spot in Italy's 2006 World Cup squad, where he would continue to bully defenders on the international stage and even score 2 in a quarter-final. And of course, Luca Toni with Italy would go on to win the World Cup. And despite this being a team effort, it further highlighted his brilliance in the season that had just concluded. It was a really unexpected run of form from a guy that was not known to be a prodigy. And from one striker that was dominating week in and week out in Italy, we need to go and fly over to Spain and talk about another striker that was hitting a pinnacle of his own, combining goal scoring, consistency, and even more silverware. Because in that very same season, another striker named Samuel Eto'o would also go on a generational run. Yes, back in the 2005/6 campaign, Samuel Eto'o was also breaking boundaries, being a sharp, sparkling point in this Barcelona side. This season had Samuel Eto'o rubbing shoulders with some of the best, scoring 26 goals in La Liga, earning him a Peeeeaaaace award. But in my opinion, he saved his best for the biggest stage that season. Because during the 2005/6 campaign, Barcelona would win La Liga and also the Champions League. And one of the main men for Barcelona during this time was Samuel Eto'o. Samuel Eto'o had one of the best game styles in football during this time. This guy had the ability to press the back line. He could dribble, he was technical on the ball, he could score headers, score poacher goals, score a long shot. He had the ability to do it all. And in La Liga, he would demonstrate consistency that we had never seen before, and Frank Rijkaard would praise him to say the least. And where consistency showed in the league, his clutch ability would come into play in the Champions League, with a great example coming in the final against Arsenal where it mattered most. Because with Barcelona trailing in the game 1-0, it would be Samuel Eto'o to tie it up. And with Barcelona going on to win 2-1 in the game despite some dodgy decisions, Eto'o would be named man of the match, with him also being honoured as UEFA's best forward of the year too. That season he was superb, with 26 goals in the league and 6 in the Champions League where it mattered. But numbers alone don't really capture this season in an essence, because I think the most important thing about Samuel Eto'o is that he was just so consistent. Even in a game where he didn't give you a goal or an assist, he was the guy making the runs, pressing defences and doing off-ball stuff, helping aid the likes of Ronaldinho and Lionel Messi to express their creativity. Because I bet you forgot that these two players were also in the same side as Eto'o during this season. He would score in El Clasico that year, the Club World Cup, the Copa del Rey, and seemingly every time that Barcelona needed a breakthrough that campaign, Eto'o was there. The Cameroonian this season just put his name up there as one of the best strikers in football, and in all honesty, it would only just get better, because he would be involved in multiple campaigns, winning trophies, make moves to Inter Milan, then do great stuff there too. But during this campaign that Samuel Eto'o had winning the Peeeeaaaace, there was a guy that he beat out for the Golden Boot, aka the Peeeeaaaace, that year. And the striker that was just behind him in the league that was looking at him and saying, "I need to take your spot," was David Villa. And when you talk about David Villa's prime, it's hard to pinpoint one specific campaign, because the Spanish shooter would deliver back-to-back generational campaigns from the 2008/9 season to the 2009/10 season, displaying 2 world-class campaigns whilst playing for Valencia. He was absolutely immense and playing in a side that was just one notch below the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona. And with him scoring 28 goals in the 2008/9 season, it would just go to show that he was rising. And he would score these 28 goals in just 33 games. That's a stunning 0.84 goals per game. That's the type of stat that's up there with some of the best strikers in the next 10 years that would follow this. And in fact, during a span of 4 years leading up to 2009, David Villa was the second highest goal scorer in Spain behind Samuel Eto'o. But remember, Samuel Eto'o had the benefits of being in a Barcelona side, a side that would score 129 goals more than Valencia during this period in time. So pretty much what I'm trying to get at is David Villa was carrying Valencia's attack week in and week out for multiple years. And similarly to Samuel Eto'o, I think what made David Villa so good was his all-round gameplay. Fresh off of being the top goal scorer in the Euro of 2008, he would bring that same energy to the 2008/9 season, scoring on the opening day and then just never looking back. And I think one thing that a lot of people that watched David Villa growing up could also, see in his gameplay was that it didn't matter whether it was left foot or right foot, he could score with ease. And it's because David Villa was famously two-footed after suffering a fracture to one of his legs during his childhood. This season he would just display it all, whether it was scoring free kicks, scoring penalties, getting in behind defenses, link-up play then finishes, poaching goals. I mean, give this guy a yard of space and he would just exploit it. And when he was gone, they missed him, and when he came back with goals, because in April of 2009, after coming back from a little injury, David Villa would go on to score back-to-back braces, meaning 2 goals in each game, by the way. And by the final match day, he would score his 28th goal in the 2008/09 season. This was the most goals by any Valencia player in a single season for the last 60 years. And that season he was every bit as brilliant as the likes of Messi, Ronaldo, even Kaká during this time. And then in the following season he would just continue this run of form, netting 28 goals in all competitions, getting 3rd in the Peeeeeaace rankings that season, with outstanding performances in the Europa League for Valencia. In a 4-4 draw against Werder Bremen, this guy would score a hat-trick, showing his ability to drag his side from the depths, something like Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. He would just grab his team, show him the victory and say, yeah, you're coming with me. And after that 2009/10 campaign with Valencia, he was finally recognised on the world stage, being a part of the 2010 FIFA Best 11 and also the UEFA Team of the Year. And then you add into the fact that he was heavily involved in Euro 2008 with Spain, and then the 2010 World Cup with Spain too. David Villa's generational run stands for not only the numbers but also the context behind it, his impact, the hidden impact of David Villa. And as a lot of you know, at the end of 2009/10, David Villa would be swooped up by Barcelona. In a move worth around 40 million euros, he had proven everything that he could at Valencia. And then he would go to Barcelona and just continue. But that's a story for another day. And yet, even with David Villa's contributions during the 2009/10 season, there was a striker that did even more. A man that almost resembles one of the greatest boxers of all time, Rocky Balboa. Tell me that Diego Milito doesn't look like Rocky Balboa, bro. These guys are the same person. In the 2009/10 season, Diego Milito was honestly untouchable for Inter Milan, because this wasn't just a generational run that this player would go on, it was stuff of fairy tales. During this campaign, he would just elevate his gameplay. We had not really seen him display this. Inter Milan during this season were chasing an unprecedented Italian treble, with the Serie A, Coppa Italia and Champions League all in contention. And Milito's goal scoring and clutch ability clinched these trophies for Jose Mourinho and these Inter Milan players. The Argentine would score 30 goals in 52 games that year. And this was in a side that had other star men too, the likes of Samuel Eto'o was involved, Wesley Sneijder. But time and time again, big game after big game, it was Diego Milito that stood up, with an astonishing 18 of his goals that year, salvaging either a point or winning the game. And it's just like when the pressure mounted, he was given a +5 attributes, like on FIFA 17 back in the day, where you could just put this onto your ultimate team card and they just become overpowered. Yes, this was happening for Diego Milito when Inter Milan needed him most. And let's just take in this info and digest it. In May of 2010, with each trophy on the line, Diego Milito would score in each of the finals. First, in the Coppa Italia final with Roma, Milito would score in the 40th minute, which would be the only goal in a 1-0 victory, earning Inter the Coppa Italia. Next, in the Serie A title race, Inter Milan needed a win against Siena away from home. And after the game being stagnant at 0-0 and suspense building up, Diego Milito would break through and score the goal needed for Inter Milan to win and clinch their 18th Scudetto. That's 2 down with 1 to go, and in the grandest stage of them all, in the Champions League final, he would step up again. This was a Champions League final spot earned by these Inter Milan soldiers, and they were coming up against Bayern Munich. And during this game, Diego Milito would score 2 beautiful goals to crown Inter Milan the champions of Europe. And the first would see a bit of link-up play between him and Wesley Sneijder before he just slapped it into the top of the goal. Then the second would see him drift out wide before edging towards the 18-yard box and just leaving the defender on the floor before putting it past the keeper. It was flow state from Diego Milito because he knew what his mission was, earning himself the man of the match in the final, the UEFA Forward of the Year, but also gifting Inter Milan a treble. Think about it, without his contributions in each of these finals, who would have known what would have happened? And it's not like it was just these games, because people like to label it as, oh, he was just good in the finals, but no. That year he would also score in both Milan derbies, including a goal and an assist in a 4-0 thrashing early on in the season. He also scored crucial goals against the likes of Dynamo Kiev, CSK Moscow, Chelsea, all in the Champions League. He would finish with 22 goals in the Serie A, only behind Di Natale at the top. But this season as a whole was the gold standard for clutch strikers in football, and honestly is one of my favorite generational runs in football. And it's also a run that gets overlooked because of the glory of Inter during this season. You know, everyone talks about the treble, everyone talks about Jose Mourinho and that moment against Barcelona, everyone talks about Samuel Eto'o being involved after transferring from Barcelona, and everyone even talks about Wesley Sneijder, who, you know, was put up as someone that could have won the Ballon d'Or. And I think one trait of his generational run that is similar to all of the ones that we spoke about in this video is the theme of consistency and prevailing when it matters the most. So thank you guys for watching this video of me talking about some of my favorite generational runs by strikers during the 2000s. And of course, if you want another rendition of this, then just comment below and we will make the next one. This has been your boy Jib Rules, back with another video, and of course make sure you leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Finally, as always, stay safe, stay blessed, and peace.